What if the radical progressive is really just an old-time Democrat? Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. And Bill, there's a story in the New York Times from a Jonathan Martin detailing the difference between the way Elizabeth Warren, the senator who's running for president, the difference between the way she presents herself in front of the hard left progressives of the party and the way she presents herself to party insiders. In the one group, she's basically saying, I'm with Bernie, meaning, Medicare for all, progressive policies, pseudo-socialism. I'm with that group. When she's with Democrats behind the scenes, she talks about how she has supported the party's candidates and the party's committees across the country. She supported some 160 congressional candidates. She gave money to every state committee, to some redistricting battles, 50 state parties, 20 hopefuls in governor races. Bill, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in politics, and you expressed earlier this week that if you had to be concerned about one of the frontrunners in the Democratic Party, it would be Elizabeth Warren. What do you think about this charm offensive that she's putting on, essentially saying, I'm one of you, you don't have to be worried about my progressivism?
I'd like to clarify that what we were actually talking about was I thought she was the most dangerous among Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, and Elizabeth Warren. I did not think, and I do not think she is the most dangerous candidate out there as far as Republicans are concerned. What you're basically saying is that she throws red meat to the audience, and then when she's talking to the people with the money and the connections, she dresses up and behaves herself. Okay, this is essentially the campaign that she's running in the broader sense. She's running as a fire-breathing liberal who's going to bring down Donald Trump and his terrible orange Nazi regime, and then she wants to also get those sensible voters who are deeply concerned about the lunatic fringe of the Democratic Party, and she's going to try to appeal to those people as the college professor.
Isn't this exactly what you have to do to win the Democratic nomination and then go on, frankly, to have a spitting chance at the presidency?
It may be what you need to do to win the Democratic nomination, but I think it also dooms you come the general election. To some degree, obviously, this dynamic is in place for both parties at all times. Right? Everybody knows that in the primaries you run to the right or to the left, and then in the general election you move towards the center. And that's been pretty solid and generally speaking pretty wise for certainly the time I've been watching politics. But what the problem here is that in the case of the 2020 field of Democrats, the difference between the left and the far left and then the extreme left is widening. And so you don't get to play both sides of that card at the same time. You don't get to have it both. In the Republican Party, you can be for and against certain things, but the main thing generally, is you're going to be strong on the military, you're going to be pro-business, you're going to be pro-life, you're going to be any number of other things, and within there's some wriggle room. But what the progressive Democratic Party has staked out by its most far left people are positions that people like Elizabeth Warren have made the fatal mistake of actually endorsing publicly. So when you have a field of Democrats up there on a debate, and the question is how many of you think we should be giving health care to illegal aliens, and all 11 of them, or however many of them there were, raised their hands. They're raising their hands because they want that radical vote, they want that Democratic vote, but that also means that come the fall, Donald Trump is going to be able to just simply say, this is what they want. Is it what you want? I don't think it's fair. And if he goes along that route, and I think he will, I think his chances are excellent.
Well, the suggestion in this column by Jonathan Martin in the New York Times is that Elizabeth Warren is doing something to essentially thread the needle. Joe Biden, great party man, long-standing party man, but not radical enough for the left side of that party. Bernie Sanders wants to start a revolution, but he showed the last time he ran that he'd rather run against his own party than run with it. And he's not the kind of guy who's going to say, yeah, here's my donor list and let's go and let's make this run for the White House. Elizabeth Warren is managing to do both. And the case Jonathan Martin is making in this column is that is going to stand her in good stead when it comes to a general election race, because the Democrats who are more conservative will not stay away from the polls because they're not afraid of her.
Well, unless Donald Trump goes completely into a coma, they'll be afraid of her by the time the first week in November of 2020 comes along. This is entirely my point. She may be able to get the Democratic nomination this way. And a matter of fact, I think I said I didn't think she was the most dangerous opponent for the Republicans, but I think she's beginning to look like maybe the most likely one. But she can't have it both ways. She can have it both ways in the primary, because people can tell themselves whatever they want to, and the people who think that she's a moderate can tell themselves that she's a moderate. The people that think she's a radical can tell themselves that she's a radical. She can get all of those votes for the Democratic nomination, win the nomination, and then she's going to go up against a guy who I've noticed is not too terribly intimidated by people and is not particularly reticent about asking sharp questions. So when she comes time, assuming she's the nominee and she comes time to deal with Donald Trump directly, Donald Trump is going to be able to ask some very interesting questions. Do you support the Green New Deal? Yes or no? And she's going to have to answer. And if she doesn't answer, by the way, if she tries to thread that needle, Trump will destroy her. He'll say basically, I think he's smart enough, certainly think he's smart enough to say, look, folks, the non-answer she just gave you tells me and should tell you that she's lying. She didn't say she's for it. She didn't say she's against it, which means that she's both, which means that she doesn't represent anything. She doesn't mean anything. She doesn't care about anything except for getting elected. I'm against it. That's how you win an election. And when she's forced to make a choice between the radical policies of the progressive far left social justice warrior wing and the relatively sensible middle of the Democratic Party, when she tries to gather both crops at the same time, all it takes from any Republican candidate is to say, which one? Which one, for the benefit of the American people, which one? I'm against the Green New Deal. You raised your hand and said you were for it. Are you still for it? And then she has to answer. And if she says, yes, I am, she all of a sudden convinces those people who thought she was a relatively sane candidate. She says, oh, okay, got it. So we don't really know, but this is their public position, so this is probably the one she wants. And they'll reevaluate.
Well, you know how these things work, Bill. It's a process of people evaluating candidates and saying, okay, well, I don't like a lot about them, but this is enough for me. I'm on board with that person. And I think the Warren campaign seems to be banking on the idea that if you can conduct yourself in a way that is the politics of addition instead of division, if you can win the left while you're winning the stalwart Democrats at the same time, then you go into the fall campaign more unified and bank on President Trump either doing or saying something stupid or just having enough of an underbelly of the country that does not like him that you can perhaps eke out an electoral college victory.
Well, wouldn't that be ironic? First of all, I don't think Donald Trump is in worse shape than he was in 2016. I think he's in far, far better shape. So there's that. Secondly, Elizabeth Warren is not Hillary Clinton. Elizabeth Warren is Hillary Clinton that's been detoxified to a large degree. But there's no charisma there. There's no... Tell me some qualities about Elizabeth Warren, just some personal qualities.
I'll tell you some personal qualities, actually, that were revealed in this article in the New York Times, is that she is behind the scenes when she's reaching out to these Democrats. Many of the Democrats who are candidates for office or leaders of their parties in their states say that they're stunned that they get personal phone calls from her.
That's not a personal quality.
She's not handing that off.
That's not a personal quality, and that's not what I'm talking about. That's not a personal quality. A personal quality is something about the person. I know Donald Trump likes to play golf. I know Donald Trump likes to run hotels. I know Donald Trump likes seeing his name on things. I know Donald Trump. I know his character. I know more or less I can predict how he's going to behave in any situation.
Then you're better than most other people in this country.
What does Elizabeth Warren do for fun? What are her hobbies? Who does she hang out with? Does she have a husband? Have we ever seen the husband? Will we ever see the husband? I've never seen a partner of Elizabeth Warren. I haven't the slightest idea whether she's married or not, and I haven't the slightest idea of whether what the guy's name is if he exists, or her name if she exists. And furthermore, this is the way that you win primaries and lose elections, by trying to be everything to everyone. And it works in the primaries, but it doesn't work against an actual opponent. And this is why the Democrats have proven themselves to be so vulnerable, and why that over the course of Barack Obama, they lost 1,000 seats across the country during those 8 years. Because without a press to hector them and to poke them and probe them and ask them tough questions, they, like AOC, get to coast along underneath the protective aegis of the press's shield. And when it comes time for them to actually face real opposition, they fold. And the best example of this was, certainly the clearest, was in the second debate in 2012, where Mitt Romney started asking some pointed questions of Barack Obama, and he started sweating and gulping as well. I think we should move on. No, I'd like an answer, Mr. Obama. I'd like an answer to this. You did this. And then Candy Crowley throws her not inconsiderable mass between the two of them in order to break up the fight before Obama's on the ropes and down on the canvas. So what we found, Scott, in 2016, and we learned our lesson from 2012, is that if we don't have a candidate who's not willing to tell Candy Crowley, shut up, this has nothing to do with you, we are running for office of the President of the United States, you are essentially a waiter, shut up. I'm asking him a question. If we don't have a president who's willing to do that, we're going to lose. But turns out we do have a president who's willing to do that, and he's going to force Elizabeth Warren to show her actual cards. He's going to make, whether they're the cards that she wants to play or not, he is going to make her turn over a card. He's going to make her turn over a card on all of these issues, and then everybody's going to know what her hand is. May not be what she wants to play, but that's the hand. So to say that she's able to do, this miracle of cooperation impresses me to the small degree that she's worked in the Democratic Party machine as well as it can be worked. That doesn't particularly surprise me. But the Democratic Party machine was under iron discipline under Hillary Clinton, enough discipline to basically invalidate Bernie Sanders' wins. And certainly she doesn't command that kind of fear, which means she's not going to get that kind of control. I don't think, and as I've said before, Elizabeth Warren does not come with the brand. Hillary Clinton for 30 years has been, well, more than that probably, has been for 30, 40 years now, the women's choice for America. She's been the women's candidate. She's also been the one who's gone and personally attacked Bill Clinton's rape victims, but let's not dally about the details, shall we? So, Hillary Clinton comes in with the momentum. She's anointed. She's the one. She's all of these things. People know her. They're familiar with her. They may not like her, but they know her. And when I ask you whether or not Elizabeth Warren is married, I'm in this business. You would think I would know these things. I tend to know a fair amount about details. I haven't got the slightest idea. That tells me that this is the kind of person that doesn't tell anybody who they really are. And furthermore, and if I was a wise opponent to Elizabeth Warren, and I suspect we may have one, I would enlarge on this by saying, her inability, her ability to want it both ways, her ability to talk like a fire-breathing radical to the radicals and talk like a sober conservative to the moderates is indicative of somebody who would do or say just about anything to get where she wanted to be. It's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like somebody like from Boston claiming to be an American Indian trying to get into Harvard or something like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will have coverage of this presidential election race down to the final day of it, or at least until we find out whether Elizabeth Warren is married. We appreciate the members at BillWhittle.com who have supported this enterprise, and they have funded it. $9.95 a month in some cases is what they contribute to this, and it makes it possible for us to do this. And it provides content, frankly, for free for people all over the world. So we're grateful to them. You can become one of them by going to BillWhittle.com and clicking that Become a Member link. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thank you.